Everyone in the world has a jerk like JR in the family. Well, the first script I read, everybody was a scoundrel. Even Mama, in her own way, was a scoundrel. And over the period of 5 or 6 shows that we did, the pilot, the miniseries, it kind of narrowed down to me, which was fun because good guys, that's the hard work. Like Bobby has the hard work. He's such a nice guy. And and the bad guys get the ladies and the money and all that kind of stuff. And I had more fun with that part. I still am having fun with that part. I think one of the reasons that the show is so popular, and especially overseas in Europe and South America, is that everyone in the world has a jerk like JR in the family. A father, an uncle, a brother, a cousin, or somebody who asserts authority and is a jerk, and everybody can identify with that. Well, when you're starting anything new, you're feeling out everybody and they're getting to know each other and so forth. And Mr. Katzman, who was the producer, was a wonderful guy, and he and I struck up a friendship. And he recognized that I knew a lot about Texas. I mean, I was born in Fort Worth and brought up in a town called Weatherford, which is on the other side of Fort Worth. It's about 60 miles west of Dallas. And so I knew the vernacular and the mindset and so forth. And I modeled my character after a gentleman who just passed away recently, Jess Hall Jr. And he was the quintessential JR. And I just took his character and lived it. No, it just happened. Bobby and Pam would be doing a scene in the foreground, and the camera was concentrating on them. And Sue Ellen and I would be in the background. They didn't give us any dialogue, so we made up our own stuff like, Sue Ellen, what the hell's going on here? Look, there's a button missing here. Now, what kind of wife are you? And she'd say, oh, JR, I'm so sorry. And we just, BS behind there, never thinking that anybody's ever going to watch it. Well, they sometimes need to cut in, and take something out or change it around. So they filmed all of that. So in the dailies, they said, what the hell are those guys talking about up there? They didn't know, but after a while, they picked up on it. And we were the Bickersons, is what we were. And they kind of went with that. Yeah. I remember walking into the first reading, and I had my Western garb that I always wore anyhow, and I had a case of champagne in a big leather sack with ice in it. So that's what lightened me. I walked in the door, and she said, I'm your wife. I'm Sue Ellen. And I said, hello, darling. And that was right there. I knew that woman was just the best leading lady I'd ever have. To me, I was just trying to feel what the parameters were in our relationship, because when you come in and all of a sudden you've been married for 10 years and you don't have any relationship. So I think that's what I was trying to do more than anything, not to show the pecking order. But I was right. I had 3 things. When I direct, there's 3 things: happy, sad, fast, slow, and better. She said, what do you want? I said, do it better. That's all. I had a friend of mine from Russia. His name was Konchalovsky, and his father was a great director, and he was a director. He used to come over to America, and he would bring over big tins of caviar, beluga caviar, and I would trade him like 50 cassettes of Dallas for a liter of, well, it was a good deal for me. And he'd take those cassettes back of Dallas and clone them, and to the extent that after about 10 of them, you couldn't tell what it was. It could have been Knots Landing, for that matter. But my theory was the reason the Soviet Union fell down is because they were seeing what we had here, all the cars and the beautiful clothes and the food and so forth, because they didn't have any information about the Western world over there. You were not allowed to see anything. So I thought that maybe Dallas was the downfall of the Soviet Union. Well, I don't know. The women wanted to get a hold of JR and change him. Now, once they changed him, they wouldn't want him anymore. And the men liked everything he represented. Like money and sex and fun and big cars and, jet planes and all that kind of stuff. And so it was a little something for everyone. Oh, I don't know. I'm just an entertainer. I'm not a singer. I don't dance. I don't sing. I don't play any instruments. I have to rely on somebody else to write the lines for me. So I just do the best I can in interpretation. And I happen to hit on a character that I was familiar with. You know, we had, at that time, we were having a recession. It was during the Reagan administration, and the bottom was dropping out of a lot of things that had never happened before since the Big Depression. And people couldn't afford to go out at night, you know, and get a babysitter and go out for dinner and a movie or something like that, so they had to stay home. And I think that the recession helped us a lot, because we were on Friday nights and they had nothing to do but stay at home and look at that. And they'd have parties. One bar, I don't know, it was in Illinois or something like that, used to buy an old television set, and at the end of the show, when I came on with that kind of grin of mine, they would raffle off tickets, and whoever got the winning ticket would be able to throw a beer bottle through the television set. I thought I made it. I had made it then. That was a big deal. That was a big deal. I think 390 million people saw it. I think that's conservative too, but I know that during that period of time, restaurants would shut down if they didn't have a big television set. Nobody would go out to dinner. And then people were having parties, Dallas parties and so forth. It was just a strange phenomenon. I really don't get it. And I hope we can do it again, that's for sure. Oh, my mother was probably the leading musical comedy actress in America. South Pacific, Sound of Music. She also produced Sound of Music. And she got the book from Baroness von Trapp. She bought the book and took it to Rodgers and Hammerstein and said, would you do a musical of this? And I think it's the second largest grossing, well, until the new crop of stuff came along. Films, you know, like Gone with the Wind. It's just out there forever. And, well, she gave me 3 pieces of it. She says, always hang up your costumes and know your lines and stay reasonably sober. Well, I did 2 of them. I did. Let's see, I was 19 and I think she was 16. And she was going to RADA, the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, in London. And I was stationed over there in the Air Force. And before I was stationed, I was in South Pacific in the show with Mother in London at Drury Lane Theatre. So I got in with that group at the RADA, and I dated her several times. And her sister, Jackie, she was gorgeous too. Oh yeah, that was great. But I had to have them in by 10 o'clock at night, so not much you could do between 8 and 10. Oh, well, Carroll O'Connor, he was my mentor in a sense. I was starring in a play that went to Boston for tryouts and so forth, and we became great friends. He was the assistant stage manager, and his wife played a small part in the play. And we really got to know each other well. And I had an apartment on 6th Avenue and 49th Street, and he had an apartment on 6th Avenue and 52nd Street. So he used to come over, didn't have any hot water, so he used to come over on Saturdays, and then we'd have dinner and he'd shower. I mean, he and his wife would shower. And we got to know each other very, very well then. And he advised me on I never made a move without consulting him on everything, including my dickering with Dallas about, you know, increasing salary and things like that. He kind of masterminded that for me. Yeah. Yeah, well, Dallas was a huge success, and I thought, well, you know, I'm getting a secondary salary here, so I thought it's a good time for me to ask for a little more. Well, that was when they shot me, and I figured, well, if I don't get the salary raise and they fire me, I'll never work in the industry again, so I have to go for it all the way. And I did. I asked for a huge amount, and they didn't think it was going to last that long, and that was like in the 3rd year. And so when they gave me that raise with the incremental wages down the line, I mean, it lasted for, 10 years after that. So it turned out to be a pretty good salary. So I was the first guy to negotiate that. So I figured all those kids on Friends owe me at least 10%. You know? They were getting $1 million each. Good for them. I just want a little piece. Oh, Pat and I, well, we go hunting and fishing a lot. Yeah, we just hit it off. I was going across the country with my family one time, and we used to camp out all over America when you could just drive anywhere and throw a tent up and stay. You know, now it's all organized. But I stayed in his hometown of Boulder, Montana, and I was up there, and I met his parents. They ran the Owl Bar, and I got to know them, played poker in their back, in the back of the place there, and they were real nice. So when I was doing this show with Patrick, they said, well, how's it going with Larry Hagman? He says, do you know him? Yeah, sure, we knew him before you knew him. So I knew his parents too, before they were killed. I was playing a manager, and they had written it as a Boston character, and I tried to get my accent into a Boston kind of talking like that. It didn't work, so I went out to lunch with the writer and the director, and we had lunch, and they said, that's not really your accent, is it? I said, no, I have kind of a Texas accent. They said, well, why don't you use that? So I used a Texas accent and made the guy a Texan, and that was the first study I'd done on the JR character, and that was a lot of fun. I liked that film. I don't think anybody ever saw the film. Well, it's kind of interesting because the people that produced Dallas produced The Waltons, which was a sweet show about a nice family and so forth. And it was a real departure from their usual. And yeah, I don't know, it was just fun, and it developed. I mean, I always considered it a cartoon. And I always thought of Dallas as kind of funny, because it was kind of funny. But it was a human funny. I don't know really where it falls, drama or cartoonish or whatever, but it carved a place in history, that's for sure. Oh, yeah. I mean, daytime soap was wonderful. I did it for 3 or 4 years in New York alongside of Broadway shows. And yeah, well, that taught you to be humble, that's for sure, because we didn't have teleprompters in those days, and it was live. So if you went up all across the nation. It was called Edge of Night was the name. It was no longer in existence, but it was great training because you got paid to learn. You know, camera, how to use it, and how have it use you. And yeah, it was scary sometimes too. Just, you know, I went up a couple of times, and some of the other older actors helped me through it and so forth. But I mean, you couldn't throw a guy a line, and you couldn't read it anywhere. So it was a great learning period. Yeah. Comedy is not funny. No, it's hard, but it's very rewarding. It's still on the air. I think it's 47 years it's been on the air now. Can you imagine that? Being on a show that old? Well, Billy was dyslexic, see, so he had to learn his lines by other people talking them to him. So he would come on, and he was a little goosey, you know. Billy is just one of the great comedians I've ever met. I mean, he is just, that's him. I mean, there's no difference. I mean, that character is Bill Daly. He's a wonderful guy. Oh yeah, sure. I do it all the time. I make a lot of personal appearances in Europe and here. And so I get to live the part a lot. I mean, when I'm not doing JR, I'm doing JR out there in the hustings, you know. And I have a lecture tour. I go around about my life and so forth, and my mother's life. So I keep it active. Character traits of JR. Well, he was influenced by his father a lot, and his mother, but his father a lot. Now, Jock was a hard man. He was of the old school. And he got a lot of that stuff out of him. But he also liked women a lot. Women and money. That's a good combination when you come right down to it. And he didn't have many scruples at all. Everything was wide open for him. And you know, he's in the oil business, but if he was in any other business, he'd have the same scruples of that, just kind of a winner. He wanted to be a winner. You know, he was a winner. Up until the end when his wife got all his money, and his brother got South Fork, and that's where I'm starting from now, as not penniless by any means, but still not with this. I have everything. I have the hubris, but not the wherewithal in this. I think I'll get it back though. Well, I look at it as a craft too. You know, as a craft. There's certain things I can do and certain things I avoid. I mean, I get films that say our hero slogging through the swamps of Louisiana, Mesquite written. I just shut that and throw that away. And our hero is slogging through the snowdrifts of Alaska. I don't do that. I do the ones that say our hero gets out of his limousine with a beautiful blonde on his arm and a bottle of champagne. I take that one. It's choices. It really comes down to choices.